Rob.
Sounds good. All set.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. At 6 o'clock, I'm calling the select board to order. I see that 2 of us are on Zoom and 2 of us are in person. So I was gonna have Karen run the meeting in the room, but I will have Chris as a secretary to watch a show of hands and stuff like that, just because I won't be able to see that well. So tonight, I'm in Belgium. That's why we're starting early. Thanks everyone who's on the agenda and all my fellow board members for accommodating me, because we're just a board of 4. So we have a pretty big agenda tonight, and I'm going to try to make the whole meeting. Yeah.
Can I interrupt you? Participants, you need to start with a roll call vote to bring the meeting to order.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I already called the meeting to order. I'm going to take a roll call vote for everyone present. Chris?
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And Carlo, yes. Thank you, Mark, for that. Thank you, Mark, for that. Appreciate it. So we have a pretty big agenda tonight. So I'm going to go over it right now. I'm pulling it up. All right. So we're starting a little early. Thank you. We have select board liaison. Oh, by the way, sorry, RCTV is streaming us, and we're on local cable for Comcast and for Verizon. So we have a public comment, liaison, town manager reports, proclamation for National Public Works Week, Simon's Way Exploratory Committee presentation, parking kiosk update, and then we have a hearing on a liquor license alteration for City Wine and Spirits on Main Street. And then we have a hearing on traffic amendments, which I'm assuming is PTTF. And then we have discussion on water and sewer rates. And then we have a discussion about acceptance of conservation restriction at Lot 4. And discussion formation of RECALC, Reading Center for Active Living Building Committee, and future agendas, approved meeting minutes. And at the very end, we're going to go into executive session. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, we are not going to come back to open session.
You are going to come back to open session.
Sorry, we are going to come back to open session. I apologize.
Yep.
And for that, let's get started. And as anyone for public comment, Chris, I'll go to you for anybody in the room.
David or Kathy and Johnson. So.
Okay, whoever's ready.
Yep. David's up.
We're all ready. A more casual meeting, kind of, right?
Definitely.
So you can imagine why I'm here. Last year,
Can you just introduce yourself?
David Zeke, 8 Sanborn Street. Last year, the select board adopted tiered water rates and sewer rates, tiered sewer rates, with the intention of lowering water usage and recognizing affordability concerns of small families and seniors, but only if they live in their own house, not if they live in a multifamily unit. The new rates punish residents of multifamily housing, which means some 20% of Reading residents, because the selected rates is based on the combined water use of all the residents in the building, regardless of how many families, condos, or apartments that includes. Therefore, these residents are charged the highest rate for their water usage. Perversely, a significant number of the residents of multifamily dwellings are the very seniors, young families, and low-income people that the policy purports to help. Then in November, town meeting asked the select board to present a plan at our April town meeting of how we could remove this inequity. The motion passed overwhelmingly. Not one person spoke in favor of the existing formula at that meeting. 3 select board members stood up and said that they would fix the problem, and now it's time to do that. From the debate at the November town meeting, it was made abundantly clear by references to the bylaws and the charter and a statement by the town manager that only the select board controls the water rates, that regardless of what the rates are, how they are derived, how they are implemented, whether by acts of commission or omission, the select board alone is responsible for the water rates and owns whatever we're doing. So now is the time for the select board to fix the problem and treat all Reading residents fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Kathy Zeke's up next time.
Thanks.
Carlo, you have the best place. You must have the best surroundings of all of us for this meeting. Good evening.
I do, thank you.
My name is Kathy Zeke, and I live at 8 Sanborn Street in the Postmark condominiums also. Almost a year ago, in June of 2023, I spoke against the tiered water and sewer rate structure that the Select Board later adopted. I pointed out then that the structure determines the billing rate for residents of multi-unit buildings based on the building's total water usage. This means that each user's billing rate is determined not by their individual water usage, but by the building's total water usage. The result, of course, is that individual users are unfairly penalized by being billed at the highest rate, a rate over which they have very little control. The analysis from the Abrahams Group that the Select Board is looking at this evening confirms the problem using data from the tiered rate system over the past several months. In fiscal 2024, residents of multi-unit buildings paid the large residential user rate, the highest tier, for 84.6% of our water usage. If the billing were based on individual usage, the analysis shows 87.6% of the the usage would be billed at the low-end user rate, the lowest tier, and 0% at the top rate, the large user rate. That's 0% instead of 84.6%. The proposed rate increases will only deepen the inequity, with residents of multifamily buildings hit with increases projected to be 2 to 3 times those of our neighbors who are billed based on their individual usage. That's a stiff penalty. It's an unfair penalty, and it's imposed on almost 20% of Reading's population, a percentage that will only grow with the MBTA community's implementation. Many of these residents are low income or elderly and may be less able to absorb cost increases. A year ago, I urged the Select Board to explore an equitable system. Not much has changed since then. I again urge the Select Board to adopt a billing system that treats all residents fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
John Sullivan's up next.
John Sullivan, also 8 Sanborn Street. Just want to briefly say, I got a quick look from your agenda at the presentation on water rates, and I was dismayed that there's a brief notice at the end of this issue. 2 pages with the conclusion, there's not enough savings for it to be worthwhile. It's $4,000, which there's reasons why that's off. I'd love to see the study, but that's one unit, one building for 54. That's $250,000 a year, which isn't chump change. And it's in the Postmark now that we have the restaurant running for them. They've only been running for half of April. Their usage is equal to the top 10 individual units usage. So we go from 84%, which actually Postmark, my study is 88%. We're gonna go to 93, 94% at the highest rate. And David's motion asked for the Select Board to look at this problem. One of the proposed solutions was a software change to just come up with an average number of units. There was some talk about that in that, but I didn't see this as a serious response, a throw off. It's not worth it. If you're gonna say the savings aren't worth it, tell me what the costs are to get there. If the savings are a lot for a lot of people, and there's no analysis of the cost of implementing this system. So I would hope you, Select Board, wouldn't be coming to town meeting with that weak an argument. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room, Chris?
Yep, one more, Tara.
Good evening. Tara Gregory, Pleasant Street, Town Meeting Member for Precinct 2. There are a few items on the agenda that I'd like to speak on tonight. First is in regards to the Simon's Wake Exploratory Committee. I hope that whatever decision the committee makes will prioritize meeting the recreational needs of the greatest number of residents. Recreational spaces benefit everyone, regardless of age or ability. I believe that the town should fully utilize the buildable area available between the Burbank Ice Arena and the baseball field. I feel that the Simons Way site is the most suitable location in town for pickleball fields that minimize the noise impacts on abutting neighbors. Next, I'd like to speak on the water and sewer rates for the upcoming FY25. Last year was the first year the tiered water rate system was introduced with the goal of promoting water conservation and protecting affordability of an essential resource. The initial rollout did not equitably address the cost of multifamily homes and apartment buildings. I urge the select board members to maintain the tiered water rate system and consider how to adjust the rates for multifamily homes. Finally, I'd like to speak on the formation of Recalc Building Committee. I'm glad this project is moving into the next phase of work. I have attended a number of the meetings and presentations about the various project locations and look forward to continuing to engage with our seniors to make sure their needs are being met, either with the renovation of the existing Pleasant Street Center or a new facility at Oakland Road or Simons Way. I have been really impressed with the work of the Killam School Building Committee and hope that members of Recalc Building Committee will share their thoroughness in reviewing the various project options, as well as prioritizing accessibility and maintaining proximity to the downtown area. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Once, twice? Anyone on Zoom? Matt, anyone?
Anybody on Zoom?
Kate?
No, no one on Zoom for public comment now.
All right, thank you. So we have liaison and town manager reports, please.
I'll start, Carlo, if that's all right.
Chris? Okay, Mark, thank you.
Thanks, folks. So main meetings have been Recalc, meeting again, Council on Aging continuing their weekly meetings in preparation for reviewing the different sites and site options and then making some decisions in terms of a recommendation to bring to the board. We'll talk later in the meeting tonight about forming a permanent building committee, but folks, remember that Recalc is scheduled to sunset in June. And I think the hope is that we can complete our business by then and then transition over to a building committee to focus on that project. As I'll talk about a little bit later, there are a couple of opportunities there. One of them is the opportunity for the permanent building committee to review sites before one is actually recommended to the select board. And that actually is in process. The permanent building committee has a meeting next week. And they will be taking this up. They've requested actually the opportunity to have a second meeting to talk about it after that. And that would probably bring to us, I'll bring this up later, a slightly later date for a recommendation to be brought to the select board. But that's moving well. There's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of citizen input about the different sites that's been important and interesting to listen to. I think that we've gone through some criteria for how to evaluate it. The Recalc committee and the COA committee are working very closely together to make sure that we're in unison on what we're going to bring forward to the select board and into the community to follow up. And that's my report.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Carlo. Yeah, not much in the last month, meeting-wise, due to town meeting for the 2 weeks that we had. I'd just like to thank Alan and Laura and obviously town staff for a very well coordinated and run town meeting. It was only 3 nights, I believe. It could have been more, but everyone did a great job, and happy to see the budget got passed. And it all deals with the preparation in advance by everybody just coming together. So that's it, pretty much. School committee meets tomorrow, so Thursday, whatever day it is. Losing track.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Karen?
Thanks, Carla. I have 4 items to report on tonight. I'm gonna go in reverse order pretty much. So last night I joined the Reading Housing Authority's meeting, since we are down on liaison, and we haven't seen them in a while. So I wanted to bring, they have approved their budget going forward. I wanted to bring 2 items forward to your attention, select board members and Matt. And one is questions about the nurse advocate. the committee mentioned that the nurse advocate has been providing a good amount of service for the residents in our housing units. So hoping the position will be filled and will be equally defined to support, I'm gonna guess, the Pleasant Street Center needs as well as the residents, living in Cherryville and other units. And the second item that they wanted to bring forward, which was news to me, is that, budgets are tight. And one of the things that they have asked for is for the town to consider allowing them to participate in our trash collection and recycling collection contracts. Our residents in, I believe it's initially state-funded housing, they are paying for their own trash collection. And that wouldn't change, but because they're so much smaller than the town, they're paying a lot more for it. And there is no recycling, which I find to be very concerning in this day and age. So the request would be for us to just allow them to participate in the favorable rates we're able to negotiate as a much larger municipality. They would still pay for their trash removal and their recycling, but it would certainly free up money for other worthy aspects of their budget, benefiting a number of residents who need it most. Secondly, Killam School Building Committee, super busy. We had another community outreach meeting. We also were able to complete 2 days of visits to net zero schools. The first was Axton Boxborough Regional School District, the Gates Elementary School. It's a net zero school powered by geothermal. The next day was the Cunniff and Hosmer new elementary schools in Watertown. Those schools are powered by heat pumps and large investments in solar parking structures. And the geothermal is quite impressive because it requires a big room and you see all of this commercial level equipment, making it happen. And then by contrast, taking an entirely different approach to the air source becomes, it was interesting to see that those are available components that you might see in all of our homes powering the school. So we were able to take a deep dive into the mechanics of both of these schools. We had our specialists brought along by our designers, and the Acton Barksboro schools and the Watertown schools each have an energy manager. And it's interesting because that's the first I've heard about an energy manager. But in Watertown, they're shared by the schools and the town municipal side. And then in Acton Barksboro, because it's a larger medium school district, the energy manager is just part of the school system. So that's something that I can see potentially coming down the line for us as we begin our energy transition. I'm happy to report that the superintendent gave us the tours of the Watertown schools, and she couldn't say enough good things about how they're performing. And we had a similar story from the energy manager at the Acton Barksboro schools. These schools were designed to perform in certain energy efficiency, have very, very, very tight building envelopes. They are both performing at or better than expected energy usage, keeping energy costs very low. And interestingly enough, we did touch on the topic of backups. So in Acton and Boxborough, they invested in an electric boiler. They told us they have not turned on the boiler once in the 2 years the school has been open. And part of that is because the building envelopes are so tight that I believe both school districts reported that if they were to lose power, they don't even worry about managing temperature control until about 2 days have passed because the building envelope just keeps it so tight. In Watertown, they have not invested in any kind of a backup generator or anything like that. They use UPCs to support their critical systems, and those are commonly used today in our schools as well. They're around for a long time. So that was a tremendous it was a great opportunity. These are all new schools, so the opportunity was twofold. Most or more of the building committee members got to see what these new elementary school designs look like, which was fascinating in itself, and I'm so excited for our community to learn more. But also, this was the deep dive we needed, and how next it still already is being implemented. So there's a lot of work, about 6 hours of chores, but well worth it. Secondly, I'm part of the MMA Fiscal Policy Committee. So we had another meeting, we went over FY24 state revenue, supplemental budgets, house budgets, in this most recent meeting. And so the House has finished their budgets, and the good news is that the millionaire's tax is bringing in the funding we expected, and the House priorities for that, that they have now sent to the Senate, included $37 million for Chapter 70, $10 million for local roads and bridges, $10 million for Green School Works, which is a program I was unaware of, but that would be a pool of money to help us transition our schools. And then $190 million they proposed to supplement or to pay for the free school breakfast and lunch that are now standard across Commonwealth. And so in addition to that, the budget outlook, I believe we are going to see anywhere from 1 to 3% in an increase in unrestricted government funds. I believe the governor has asked for 3%. The MMA agrees with that. I believe the House, the consensus number was 2%. So more to come. The Senate is going to have to work on this. But so I see some relief for us coming from the state, which is good, both from the millionaires tax that we implemented, and also just from careful budgeting and priorities coming from our legislators. So fingers crossed. We also had a meeting, and Matt joined us. MAPC met with staff and myself and the Director of Integrated Resources from RMLD to discuss completing our Green Communities application. The deadline is 6/28. MAPC is pretty positive about the support they can offer us to get it done. RMLD offers support. I'll let Matt talk a little bit more, because what I did learn is that one of our key staff members will have some extended time out of the office. So, we could have our initial grant in our hands by September, which we estimate to be about $180,000. And if we don't make this deadline, it's going to be a good year before we see anything, given the next application period would be potentially the end of the year, but again, the disbursement three months later. Or I might have those dates off a little bit, but it's a really important priority. We can use these funds immediately. I believe they can be used to buy some of the vehicles we're trying to buy. I saw that we lost the earmark for a police car. Pretty sure we can use these funds for that. I firmly believe there's no end to how valuable these grants will be. So, I'm in favor of supporting that and the staff in any way we need support to make sure that we get it. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Karen. It's been a while since our last meeting, and I did take one of those official tours of the Pleasant Street Center, and got to see every corner and nook and cranny of the building, and know the condition it's in, of course, and look forward to doing something. And I've been paying attention to recalc and COA meetings closely, and seeing how those meetings go, and input from the community, and the extensive work that those two committees have done. I also attended a Killam meeting. I'm a former Killam family. We are, and excited to see that moving forward. We had a nice presentation on different designs and different stories and different footprints. So that was nice to see, and I know a single design is coming up soon. Just say a half hour ago, so we approved our final minutes for Simon's Way, and look forward to our presentation coming soon tonight. And that's it for me. And Matt, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. As mentioned, town meeting is concluded. the budget was passed. So thank you to everybody who made that a successful venture. That was my first town meeting at the helm, and it went very smoothly, and I'm happy and pleased, and want to thank everybody involved. Also, a couple of events coming up. The police and fire badge pinning is coming up. Their ceremony is Monday, May 13th at 7 p.m. at the PAC. That's always a great event every year. We pin our new police officers and firefighters and also announce promotions at that time, so I hope people can make it to that. As people probably know, early voting is happening in Town Hall this week, right outside our door. That happens till Thursday, and that is regular Town Hall hours. Couple of staffing updates. We did hire a planner for housing and sustainability. That person will be starting in June, so that will give us some much needed help in the planning department. We're still in the process of filling the economic development planner. And we're also heading into the final round of interviews for assistant town manager. So it's a busy time in HR. We're getting staffed up, and I think we're going to hit all those deadlines that were mentioned earlier pretty easily. So thank you. Oh, and also I wanted to mention, because we've been asked, no further action has been taken on the investigation that was voted on last meeting. That is considered closed at this point, so. Sorry.
Is that it, Matt?
Yes, that's it for me, sorry, yep.
Carlo, can I ask a question?
Thank you. Sure.
Matt, couple things. One on PTTTF.
Yep.
Is there going to be a presentation to the board coming up? I know
Yes.
we talked about some priorities, asking them for some priorities.
Right.
And I know we received a couple of requests since for intersection concerns.
Right, it's on one of your June agendas. We have it there, proposed agenda, so they're planning to come, yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. No problem.
Was that it, Mark?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you. I don't know who's presenting the Public Works proclamation, but please proceed.
Okay. I think it's in your motions, Chris, so.
And you got Chris in the room.
Chris was going to present something, or am I just reading this? Or?
No, I just want to thank the board first for, taking up this proclamation and for, recognizing, Public Works in Reading and the great staff, that we have doing the work each and every day. So if you want to read the proclamation, feel free to.
Are you good, Carlo?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, so National Public Works Week, whereas public works services provided in our community are integral but often unnoticed part of our residents' everyday lives, and whereas the support of understanding and informed residents is vital to the efficient operation of the Public Works Department in the areas of administrative services, engineering, highway and equipment maintenance, stormwater, parks, cemetery, forestry, water, and sewer, and whereas the health and safety and comfort of residents of this community depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these services is vitally dependent upon the effort and skills of public work officials and employees, and whereas the efficiency of qualified and dedicated first responder personnel who staff our Public Works Department is material influenced by the residents' attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Reading, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th to May 25th, 2024 as Public Works Week in the Town of Reading. And we call upon residents and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing quality public work services to the community and to recognize the contributions which public works officials and employees make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. The Select Board of Reading.
Thank you. And I actually remember to bring the proclamation this time, so I'll pass this around for signing. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, board.
All right, as that's going around to be signed, I don't know, Chuck, I was planning to present,
I have
and I was,
a motion to accept it, Carlo.
oh, sorry.
Move to accept the proclamation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. I'll take a roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carlo, yes. Thank you. Is Chuck in the room yet?
He is.
Yes.
All right, so I started to say that I apologize. I was planning to present, but since we changed the schedule a bit, I asked Chuck to present, and he was delighted to present our presentation tonight that we all worked on over many, many months. And this is the final presentation with Jackie's amazing help. Thanks, Chuck.
See. Caitlin's gonna bring up the presentation for Chuck to present.
Okay.
We should close those sheets if it's a little better.
I can see.
Can you see? Okay, can everybody see the screen? Great.
Yeah.
So thank you for the opportunity. I just like to recognize Angela Binda and Karen Janowski are also here from the SWAT committee. I think Carlo is on it as well. And here's the makeup of our committee on.
Do you need to call the meeting, our board into
We don't have a quorum.
four of us?
Oh.
So we do.
We do.
All right. Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
Yep.
I will call Simon's Way Exploratory Committee meeting to order. I will take a roll call according to Chuck. So Angela,
Yes, present.
Chuck,
Yes.
and I have Andrew on Zoom,
Yes.
Karen Janowski,
Yes.
and Carlo. Yes, thank you. Thanks for that.
So this is the makeup of the committee, which I think we started in almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years in the end of the summer. So originally the charge of the committee was to find options for the land that was purchased by the town in 2019, I believe, and you can change that. And subsequent to that, we approached as you know, approached the select board to kind of look at the whole area down there, not just that piece of land, and kind of what we could do down there. And once we obtained that, we started with a survey. You can run through the next slide. So we did well, actually, we back up. We had a introductory meeting where we figured out exactly what we wanted to accomplish down there. And, you know, a lot of the committee, a majority of the committee thought that because it was, you know, Simon's is historically a recreational area, we would look at that. Also realizing that we were on the same tracks as the senior center, kind of molded that all together in our charge. You can go to the next slide. The slow Wi-Fi here.
Is that not the slide you want?
No,
Which slide do you want?
there we go.
Okay.
So this furthers our evaluation criteria that you know, we wanted to make sure it had public use, intergenerational use, which is kind of that senior bent to it. And then it would meet some demonstrated needs in the community right now, and that we would maintain ownership and then not breaking the bank in terms of what we thought we should do. So we can go to the next slide. So we did a couple of things with community input. We had multiple meetings where various stakeholders presented to us as to what they would potentially like to see down there, and you can see the different groups that we heard from. We also, you can go to the next slide. We also felt it was necessary to do a survey, which was open for a long period of time. And these are the results. The overwhelming response we got back from the survey, mostly all centered around recreation type items. And so you can keep rolling through. So these are the different survey questions. And we don't have to go, you can read this at your leisure. It's just, everyone's seen it. It was a survey. And as you can see, the top things were recreational, centered around recreation. So this just gives you, which you've all seen, gives you a overview of what the property looks like now, with the two big things down there right now are the Burbank Ice Arena and the Simon's Way Babe Ruth baseball field, and a good area, parking area, and that's really that's all that's developed down there now. So some of the constraints, we talked about contaminants a little bit because we don't have a full understanding of what's down there, but we've gotten some information from older reports and stuff about some potential construction materials and stuff down there. If anything's to be done down there, we would probably recommend that you do a full site contamination study. The other constraints are the wetlands down there. There's a lot of them. And again, we looked at some older reports that I think, Matt, were done by Weston Sampson.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that, that would, depending on what you put down there, that may have to be further evaluated, or if you just use the land that we originally bought, then there's a fairly good idea of where the wetlands are in that pocket. That pocket there is the original piece of land that was purchased by the town. And then just we talked about the contaminants, and then just and this was part of the reason why we wanted to consider expanding the scope, was just with the limited amount of land that was purchased, we weren't able to look at necessarily all the options that the town might want there. So it could end up coming back to this. That's your decision, obviously, but there was a lot of discussion about utilizing all of the land. And this is just some more. You can switch some more. This is some more information on the footprint of the property. With the baseball field on the top right there, and then the Burbank Ice Arena. And then there's on the back behind the baseball field is where the Reading rifle range is. So So our recommended options, this comes from the public input. The survey was a big component of that, and a lot of really good discussion amongst the committee. And I should back up. We did have a presentation come in from for an RFI, and that would really be what we mean by that top left-hand corner bubble or public-private. We had the company Edge Sports come in and gave us a real high-level presentation of what they would envision down there, and they were more looking at the full site and not just the little piece that we bought. And then the Center for Active Community, that's kind of a senior center slash activity with courts and all that sort of stuff that you guys have had a lot of conversation about. And then, whether we just leave it as conservation land or add some multi-purpose fields. We had a presentation on a dog park, and what came with that presentation was a grant, but we were too early in our process to be able to take advantage of that grant. But there certainly was some interest in a dog park as well, and then a lot of interest and a lot of attendance and a lot of discussion on pickleball courts. We had a couple of different presentations, one that put them in the original space that we had, and then there was a presentation that didn't get too far with use of the parking lot in back of the Burbank for a period of time to build like a temporary solution for pickleball courts. But I think it's pretty, not just in Reading, but throughout the country, pickleball's really gotten legs in terms of its popularity, and it's certainly something that, depending on what you decide to do down there, we think that you should really look long and hard at finding a way to put pickleball courts down there, because of it's away from the areas where it would cause noise problems, and there's space there. And the other thing that came down out of that was this kind of goes into the next slide, the multi-purpose fields. I know this is very important to the Recreation Committee and the Recreation Director and Department. We really need some field space for all the not only the youth programs, but all the other programs that use fields. And we really don't have anything that's lighted other than Turf 2 right now in the stadium, and those aren't always available for practice. So that's certainly something that we thought was important to consider. And there's really no place else in town at this point in time where we can put more fields. So again, it's very important to the Recreation Committee and all the good work that they do, and to have that be a top consideration. And next slide. And then this, as I mentioned, the pickleball courts, there was an original proposal to put those in the down at the Birch Meadow area, but the sound issues kind of took those out of there. And so now we have to find another, the current pickleball use is different tennis courts and courts in town. And not only with the tennis community like, but so would the pickleball community like to have each of them have their own courts and not be sharing the same courts, because they're different games and courts are set up differently. So again, I don't have to go on about this. It's certainly was certainly something we heard a lot about and agreed. I think the committee for the most part agreed with we need to do something about this. And the next slide. And this is, and I know you guys are way down the road on the senior center, and we recognize that. And we did have members on our committee from the Council on Aging stuff, and this is also important. And it's not, I don't think it's necessarily, or we didn't think it's necessarily one or the other. It could be a combination of recreational facilities and a senior center where all generations could be used, and not only the recreation facilities, but younger generations would be able to mingle with our senior population, which is always positive. So that's what that is. So the next one is the dog park. As I mentioned, we talked a lot about this, and we had Mr. Cool made a couple presentations to us, and the town forest is not really being used the way I think it used to be for dogs. So it is something that people in town would like to have an opportunity to have a dog park, and it's not felt that would utilize really a lot of space down there. So it wouldn't just be a dog park. It would go in conjunction with something else. And then the next one is so this is what we just discussed, the intergenerational multi-use facility. And this was brought out quite a bit in the RFI that I mentioned. You could go up, so you could have several levels to get all the things you're looking for, whether it be courts and rooms for meetings and senior type activities, and potentially you could put parking on a level, all kinds. This obviously comes with a big price tag, something like this, and that's why we're looking at the RFI approach. But that's your call, obviously, how you would want to do something like that. A facility would certainly check a lot of the boxes in terms of all the things that could be indoors or outdoors. Okay, so this is the conservation discussion we had earlier, and so what we would do with the land that was in the land that we purchased, could potentially gift land that can't really be used to conservation. This conservation was important to a lot of people in the survey as well. And these are the possible options. So I have to give Andrew Durbin credit for this. This was his really good presentation. And this kind of this first slide is just a little. So this is the original land that was purchased, and kind of an idea of what could go there. The next slide is just a little bit more. Would again use that land and put the senior center there, and or potentially a active center where you could get multiple things. And then the outside of the box option was to use additional land, which is behind the Burbank. I mentioned that earlier, that now is parking. And so I don't know, how that, whether you'd be able to use all of that or not, but use that land for the pickleball courts. And then you've got the original piece of land, which you can decide what you would want to put there. So basically, you'd be adding that back parking lot to the parcel that you do something on. Then the do a lot is to put a gym and pickleball on the that back parking lot area, and move the parking over to the land that was purchased. The area to the left of Burbank on there is currently there's parking there. This would add to the parking so that you could accommodate the pickleball and the baseball field, and then the open gym area there. And then the do-it-all option is adds the dog park in, and then utilizes that original swath of land for some level of parking, a community center, and some fields, and then pickleball and gym in the back again. So we can go to the next slide. So these are discussions we had on potential funding options. So under the taxpayer model, it would be either be a additional burden to the operating budget, or do a debt and capital exclusion, similarly to what you would do for the senior center or the Killam School building. And then we talked about the public-private that would be bringing somebody in, and whether you'd lose some control, but they would pay for it, run it, and in theory do the things we want them to do there, we hope. So, and as we said, we had one respondent to the RFI, which was from Edge Sports. And I think they did a presentation for you guys as well. So the next one. And so the other thing is just goes on to other potential funding sources, whether it be grants, the CPA, or if there's some potential brown field funds available. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the grants, there are grants out there. We learned that in the dog park discussion. So whether we would recommend that, our grant, we have writing our grants, actively look into that. We also have community stakeholders, one listed there, the Reading Pickleball Players Association has been raising money to help offset whatever costs there will be for pickleball courts. I know I've been in this community a long time, and we always like groups that are willing to put skin in the game for what they want. So, next slide. So here's the next steps are what we presented, and I guess now the ball has been tossed over to you guys and to decide what to do. I'm assuming that this will whatever happens with the senior center will dictate kind of what goes on down here, and that's really these are the, I won't read through all of them, these are kind of the next steps. And I don't know if any of the committee has anything I missed. Karen or Angela? Yeah. Question? That's it.
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
But Carlo, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. That's right. Thanks, Chuck. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess my biggest concern, I don't think it has to do with recalc, it's pretty much Burbank. Because options 3 to 5 on that list can't happen without them. So has anyone reached out to them since the pickleball thing a couple months back, or where do we stand with that?
I'm not aware that the SWEC committee did, no. But Carlo can correct me. I mean, it certainly, if we're gonna pursue any of those options, that makes perfect sense. You gotta sit down with Burbank, obviously, and talk to them. So, not at this point, unless I think the timing of that would be when you decided that you want to do one of those options, then it's time to sit down with them and say, this is what we'd like to do. So you're absolutely right. They need to be on board. They did come to us through the Reading Pickleball Association. I think it was around fourth quarter of last year with a proposal to allow them to put temporary courts there, but we would have to get right back to the table with them if any of the options that you decided on required us to ridge on whatever they're using now.
So Matt or Carlo, did either one of you hear from Burbank at all? Because to me, like none of these options seem viable without that. I mean, option 1 and 2, yes. I mean, that's the cheapest, most inexpensive, but if we're hearing senior center and pickleball and everything else that everybody wants, that does not seem possible without them. So I don't know, have you heard from Carl or anybody over there?
I haven't heard specifically on it. I'm not sure if Carlo has, but I don't know if they would.
Yeah, I think because we've had so many balls in the air.
Yeah, I don't think it's in our, I don't think that's in our purview to run ahead and start negotiating with Burbank. So I don't know that anybody else has.
I believe not.
But I agree with you. They definitely need to be on board with whatever goes on down there, but you guys need to make a decision as to what you want to do, and then that, I think, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I think that's
You can say whatever you want.
I think that's the timing of when that would happen. When you narrow what you want to do down there.
And if we do look into cleaning or looking to see what that area has for contaminants, if we find bad stuff, whatever that might be, are we legally required to clean it up now that we know about it, or can it just sit? Do we-
I'm smiling because we just had this discussion.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm a lawyer, but
Or Mark, I
since
guess
it's
you?
morally, we would.
Arsenic, strychnine.
It's more than moral. Yeah, so the net is that once you intrude into it, you need to deal with it.
You own it.
And there's a high likelihood that something is there. We don't know what it is.
No, we actually don't know that that's the case.
Oh, all right.
We don't know, so we have some information on what we think might be there, but that's all we really know so
So,
far.
yeah, all that's really, that we've been told about, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is when Zanny had the property down there, they were a contractor, and they left stuff down there, and that's, Mark, that's all I heard.
Well, we know that like there's
And
an
there's a
abandoned car.
shooting range down there.
Yeah, it used to be a Nike site
Yeah.
across the street from there, kind of more on the Simon side. But, so to use that site is gonna require some activity. And once we dig, right, or once we even test, do intrusive testing, then that opens the discussion. So I think that's something that the board is gonna need to talk about, and some meetings gonna need to talk about as well.
So is that, in terms of next steps, it would be whether or not we want to investigate the area to see what the concerns are over there, and then after that, Burbank, and then after that, something else, or am I skipping steps, or?
So it's conceivably, some of the designs that you could be seeing from Recalc could involve doing the Recal Center and parking and pickleball all on that land.
So this
Without
didn't-
necessarily having to go to behind Burbank.
Oh,
It's
so these
possible.
5 options didn't include whatever Recalc's options were for here?
So it allowed for it, and that's kind of where it is so far. It hasn't really gone further, than
Yeah.
kind of waiting for discussion.
Yeah, Mark is right. Mark is right.
Carlo, Angela has a question.
All right, Karen had her hand up first. Karen can go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that.
Sorry.
No, not at all. I just want to thank the entire committee. This was a big effort, and I know it's just, I wouldn't say just, it was an exploratory committee, and I really appreciate the fact that you followed the charge and really sought that community input. I think that's incredibly valuable, not just for this site, but for a potential master plan that we would be working on for our community. I appreciate that. And then I also appreciate the deep dive that you were able to do into where are the wetlands? What due diligence was done when we purchased that land? And even to the point where, getting conservation administrator going out to explore that parcel way in the back. It's been tremendously useful. I mean, the rink was built in '94, so, and then, I just appreciate that, and I want to thank you thank you all for that. That is very important information that we'll use. It's already been beneficial to the and, so I want to thank you. So in terms of next steps, these are excellent suggestions. We're just going to have to figure out the priorities for the community. But I appreciate all of the different options as well. I genuinely understand the high demand for suitable pickleball courts area in town. And I also, Chuck, getting back to your point, I also have appreciated over the years that the town likes to work with groups that are willing to get some skin in the game. So hope we can find a solution sooner than later. I will say that I've had some conversations with senior people at DEP, and depending what we find over there, when you have certain sorts of contaminants, and if they're going under a parking lot or under a building, you may not need to have pristine land, presumably. But the feedback I got from senior people at DEP was, are you gonna be rolling around in it? You're gonna have kids rolling around in it. So it's gonna be lawns, kids, pets, and people, in which case, kind of like the water tower, when we went to the extra effort to clean up what is going to be a park. So anyway, so I would say that that's a big open question at this point, no matter which direction we go into, but I wouldn't rush to assume at this point that that's gonna be a big cost. And actually, I'd be very encouraged to hear some reassurances from the senior center design. So, causing those folks and me in attendance and everybody watching to maybe, worry a little less about what might be lurking in that form of construction zone. But thank you all, this was really interesting.
Angela has a question.
Angela?
Yeah.
Angela had a question? Okay.
Angela Bender, Select Committee. So I just wanted to say that the purpose of the committee was to serve as an advisory committee to the Select Board for the purpose of recommending options for land based upon needs of the community. So really, it was sort of passing it back to you. And I think we envisioned that there would be a lot more community discussion before anything happened. And just to clarify, the drawings that Andrew came up with, again, were just like, you can put this here and you can put this here and you can put this there. There wasn't they weren't recommendations that this go here, this go there. The Reading Pickleball Association had a plan to put pickleball courts behind Burbank Arena, but they could go in the original SWAC land. I mean, all of this is, so there could be pickleball courts without having to renegotiate the lease for Burbank. There are a lot of options for it. And we sort of saw our role as exploring the possibilities, getting a general idea of what people would want to see there, and sort of passing it back to the select board and seeing, where do you want to take it? Do you want to come up with a master plan? Do you think that there's one or two things that are really critical to do now? And how do we do that without like using the best land? I mean, the RFP, one of the things that the RFI, Edge Sports did sort of say that they thought that the choicest land was the land behind Burbank. But I also saw that the plan that's coming out from Recalc is that the senior center might not even go there. It might go on the other land. So there are a lot of options. And these are just, high level ideas about what the community might like to see there and ways that it could get done. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? I just have one comment and then we can wrap it up. Any other questions from the board?
I just had one, Carlo.
All right.
So in terms of Edge Sports, if we did decide for the public-private partnership, do they do senior center scenarios with other stuff? Or do we know if that's in their wheelhouse where they'd consider that? Has that ever been brought up? Because
it was brought up at a high level. They mentioned that they could incorporate some aspects. But again, I'm not going to speak for them, but it was discussed, but at a very high level. There was no designs, no square footage amounts mentioned. But it was brought up that we are planning to put forth a active living center in town in the very near future. So they're well aware of it and they're willing to work with us. That's basically what they said. They're willing to work with us if we go down that path.
alrighty, thanks.
All right, and I know it was mentioned pickleball courts. The RPPA has considerable funds to add to this project now. They had the second fundraiser. They have quite a bit of money to put towards this effort. And as we know, town projects, or even public-private, can take years. So I know they're going to the Recreation Committee again soon to advocate for permanent pickleball courts. And through many, many meetings, between Recreation and us and Simon's Way, it's been determined that Simon's Way is the best in place for pickleball. So I just want to stress that they don't want to wait for a project. They really want pickleball, dedicated pickleball courts with lights. So I just wanted to bring that up. These are my comments, not the board's comments, or the committee's comments, sorry. And thank you, Chuck, for presenting in my absence. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Right. Back to the agenda, give me a second. Nobody is somewhere. Okay.
Do we want to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Oh, yeah, is everybody planning to leave or planning to stay?
We're leaving.
Still need to.
Chris said I have a meeting Thursday night.
Yeah, it's got a meeting tomorrow.
I'll entertain a motion, please.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Angela, I think. I'll do a roll call in the room first. Angela?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Carlo? And yes. Anyone else I'm missing? I think that's it. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, folks.
All right, next up is parking kiosk update.
Yep, so we're gonna be moving ahead on the long-awaited parking kiosks for downtown. They're gonna be installed in May and we're going live in June. Andrew McNichol is gonna come up and give a little bit of an update and answer any questions regarding the logistics, but this is something that's been talked about for years now. It shouldn't be much as a surprise to anybody. We are in the process of giving notice to everybody, so everybody's ready. But we thought it was good to just come to the select board one last time, answer any questions, and tell you a little bit about what's going on. So Andrew, if you're ready, you can come up, and Andrew and I will answer questions as well, so.
Good evening, Select Board. Andrew McNichol, Community Development Director. Chief Amendola is here with me as well on the parking enforcement side. So as Matt had just mentioned, Town Manager Matt Cornelis had just mentioned, the parking kiosks are being rolled out with the anticipated go live date of June 3rd, 2024. That's a Monday. 2 kiosks in both the Upper Haven parking lot up here off of Woburn Street and the Brandy Court lot closer to High Street. So this is the paid parking program that was explored through the park committee and then through town meeting received approval. I know there was much delay to get to this point as we worked with vendors and contracts and tried to work out the delivery through 2021, and so it just hit a number of speed bumps along the way, but we're finally ready to get this implemented and moving it forward. So we're doing a public awareness, kind of re-awareness campaign right now to notify businesses, residents of the like that this is coming in June. Blasting social media, blasting our business contacts, blasting the town website. We'll be posting flyers in some of the public buildings and stores. But otherwise, all is still as pre-approved and pre-planned. Just it's taken a little longer to get them implemented than anticipated. But the pricing scheme, the enforcement, the hours, everything is as proposed by the park committee. And I think last discussed here at the select board. Happy to answer any questions, so.
I have one, Carlo.
Brad, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So I know during park, so for the parking fees themselves, the first hour is free.
So less than 1 hour is
Less than
free,
1 hour.
yeah,
But if you park for 2 hours, you're charged for the initial hour.
correct.
And how much is an hour?
$1 an hour. Well, so the pricing scheme is $1 an hour for the first 1 to 4 hours, $5 an hour from the 4 to 9 range.
And there's fees on top of that though, right?
If you are at the kiosk machine and you elect to use a credit card at the kiosk, I believe there is a processing fee through them and the third-party credit company. I believe it's about a 30-cent fee.
And the same thing on the app or no?
There is also, I believe, and I'd have to go back to the contract to double check, but the pay by phone app, there is a fee associated with it, but it can be worked into a total cost. I'd have to go back to the contract to see if we work that out to get to the dollar or if that is $1.30. Actually, they are asking to relook at the contract given that it's been 2 years since we executed it without implementing it. So I have to have a discussion with them regardless.
And is actual cash allowed in these or no?
Coins are allowed, cash bills are not.
Okay, so people can use coins now.
Correct.
Because I know that came up, I don't know, what, like a year and a half ago or something like that it wasn't. even though
Yeah,
they said
initially it was
should.
not included through the public process. We heard a lot that it was asked, so we included the coin capture.
And I believe during Park when it came up with us, this isn't a massive revenue generator for the town. Because I've seen it posted multiple times that it is, and it's not. It's about getting people in and out of the lots and turning over traffic.
Right.
So for me, I know it might be easier to go to North Reading CVS for prescriptions and all this stuff, because they have a huge parking lot, it's fantastic. But the point is, if you could just come here and there was an actual spot for you and you had up to the hour for free, perhaps you're coming back here.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully the public realizes it's not about us making money, it's about turnover and supporting the businesses. And you can tweak the dollar figures, the app, et cetera. You can have it free on XYZ for events.
Yep.
Businesses in the future, you could give them out valet things or whatever you want to do. It can just be tweaked over time. But in the best interest of what's going on here with parking, I mean, this is really the last ditch effort before something else, you know? So.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's about turnover and opening up spaces to be available during the high utilization times. It's not about the revenue. I would love to continue to relook at the effort of a parking benefit district. There are fees with the kiosks and the back end program that we use. So some of the revenue should be used to continue the operation of that back end program and the data management of it. But establishing a parking benefit district, which I believe was discussed at Park briefly, does whatever revenue is generated and remains can be used to go back into the downtown and parking improvements or streetscape. It's got some broad uses to it. So it is something I would love to be able to relook at again once they're implemented and we start to understand some of the numbers and the actual revenue generated. So I would love to re-engage on that as we move forward here. But yes, you nailed it. And we can adjust the pricing scheme if we find something's not working, maybe more longer term parking, shorter term parking, holidays free, things like that. So yes.
And I will say behind my office with the enforcement has been significantly better having the parking enforcement person now. So it's definitely better. CVS, not so much. It's still the way that it's always been. So we'll see what happens with this.
Yep. Yeah. And just to maybe remind all too, during the park program, we nearly doubled the employee parking permit program, looked to reallocate a number of additional spaces of the on-street and some other key areas for employee parking and shorter term parking on the 2-hour regulations to again keep that turnover flowing in primary downtown area.
Yeah, there is a significant amount of parking down at that depot that they literally had their buses there for when the train was shut down, taking all the spots, and it did not really put a dent into it. So yeah, it's definitely, maybe that is one of the cause and effects because of the parking lot, like I mentioned, it's not empty, but it's not like it used to be. But the additional parking all over the place over there is pretty significant.
Yeah, hopefully the data management system of this one helps too to determine what is the average use time of a space and a visitor and how we can use that to improve future policy here.
I'm good, Carla. You're muted.
Sorry, I was on mute. Mark, anything? Mark, any questions?
No, I think this is great. It's, I'm glad that things are almost ironed out. Let's go forward. Let's do it.
Okay.
Karen, good?
Thank you, Carlo. So Andrew, I will be very interested to see, I have been a little concerned that the designated employee all-day parking along the train north of Woburn, kind of, I think it's Vine over there, is it Vine and High? It's empty all the time. It's labeled as employee-only parking. So, I mean, I think that's an area we should keep an eye on. If people aren't using it, maybe we free up some of it for shoppers.
Yep, we'll keep an eye on all of these areas, especially with the kiosk going in and how that does start to change things, if at all. So for sure, we'll keep an eye. Yeah,
It's always 2 hours
As-
for employee only.
right. So those spaces
Yeah.
are
They do have 2 hour.
Right.
Yeah, it is empty.
So I'm sorry, what was that?
All those spaces are available for 2 hour parking, so anything that says employee parking all day also is available for 2 hours. So all the signs will say 2 hours or all day parking. That's what they are currently.
Okay, I wasn't, we're all reading signs pretty quickly, and what I saw was employee parking, and I probably didn't continue reading, I just kept going. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Matt, you mentioned we're going live in June.
Yep.
And for me means live, turned on, but are we gonna give a grace period? Are we gonna put leaflets on cars? How are we gonna handle the launch of this for the public?
Well, we have been, we're doing a large mailing, email blast. I think Andrew mentioned some of that, even coming tonight. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I don't know if I don't think we had talked about a grace period. Maybe Deputy Amendola
Yeah,
could
so the chief
answer
and I
that.
discussed this, because I knew you were gonna ask this. We don't feel it's necessary because of the fact of all the signage. When we changed over a lot of the employee parking out of the lots, and they knew we gave 2 weeks of warning, those same employees just parked there for 2 weeks. I checked our system. There's no way that the parking clerk can know who she's already given a warning to with that app. Like, it's more on the back end user, the computers at the station, I can read everything. But she won't know who she's already given a warning to. So we think with the signage, it's not like overnight parking where every street doesn't say when it's happening. Here we have all this signage. We don't think that warnings are necessary because it would just be the same users and doing that. Or if you've never been here, you would automatically just go to the kiosk and know what to do.
All right, so what are we doing, it's May, whatever it is today, 7th?
Yep.
What are we doing in the next month? Besides email, besides signage, I mean, I disagree that everyone knows, because we have a lot of people that frequent the town not on a regular basis, so it will be a shock to them. So I guess, I know we're gonna do, social media blasts, and hopefully we have a new economic development director sooner than later, but if we don't, I just wanna make sure we're proactive, because the small businesses know this is coming and they can prepare their customers, but, not everyone's on social media.
I would rather be more lenient at the station. If they call, if they have an issue, if they didn't know, then I think we can get rid of it, at the police station rather than do warnings on the street for 2 weeks, but handle it internally like that.
We're also doing a physical mailing, not just electronically, a piece of mail that people will get, so they'll have the card in front of them and they'll know. So we're trying to cover all the bases, so no matter how you get your news, you'll be informed.
And we can be out there the first few days. We
Right.
can all take turns standing by the kiosk at each lot to help everybody.
That would be helpful, thank you.
And the outreach to businesses by email has worked well. A few have called already, some have offered to put the flyers in their stores, talk to their customers, so we're
Yeah.
working with everybody to get it out there as broadly as possible.
No, I think you have it covered, I appreciate it, it's gonna be a big shock to the system, and it'll take a while for people to get used to it, that's all.
Understood.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Can I ask one question?
Oh, yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen, go ahead.
This is for Andrew or Matt. Matt, how much we got budgeted for this mailing? Stamps are pretty expensive, and I'm just wondering what the budget is expected to be.
Right, I think it was, do you know the exact answer?
Yeah, so we are mailing downtown properties and within a 300-foot buffer. I know it doesn't cover the whole town, but it was a substantial area we could cover in budget. It's about $600 to $700 of our advertisement budget in the planning department.
Yeah, I was gonna say less than 1,000, I think, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask a follow-up to that then?
Yeah,
I know we
yeah.
get stuff in the mail about the metal recycling and all that on that yellow sheet or whatever. Can it not be included in that, whatever mailer or something that comes out?
Is that like a
Like it
The
comes
water bill?
in, it comes in either a water bill or not electric. It's something.
Water bill.
It's in the water bill that comes out quarterly, I believe,
Yeah,
from
quarterly,
DPW directors here as well. We could always put something in, we can look at put something in there, but that only does come out quarterly, so.
Yeah, and
When
that's
is-
what,
I guess-
late May, early June, I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah,
next
that's the
one,
next one,
so
okay.
it's around the same time frame they go live. I can talk to Chris about it and
Because then you're saving on the postage because you're mailing the stuff out anyway.
yeah, we're mailing a more also just direct double-sided postcard that includes the 3 website links, right? We have an FAQ online, we have how to use the kiosk and app page, we have a downtown general parking page. So it includes all of those links, QR codes, the planning contacts and police contacts. So it's a bit more, if it can fit in the newsletter, yes, we'll take a look.
No, just an extra
Yeah.
sheet in there.
Yeah.
It's the same amount of money to mail it.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah,
not going over 5 sheets or
yeah,
whatever.
we'll chat.
That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next up, we have a public hearing for the liquor license alteration. Chris?
Yep. So I have the notice, but I don't have the notice.
Here you go.
Mark's got the notice for me in his nice Surface book that he just got.
I don't know, it's a MacBook Pro.
No, whatever. It's not like I'm in IT. To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, please take notice that the Select Board of the Town of Reading will hold a public hearing on May 7, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. Or available remotely on Zoom to act on an alteration of premises application for an annual all-alcohol package store liquor license for Nilkland 350 Inc., DBA City Wine and Spirits and Smoke Shop, located at 345 Main Street. A copy of the proposed documents regarding this topic will be in the Select Board packet or on the website at www.readingma.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing in person or remotely via Zoom, or may submit their comments in writing to town manager at ci.reading.ma.us by order of Matthew A. Cronellis, town manager. Thanks, Mark.
So, if I can proceed, I believe the applicant is on Zoom. I believe this is just an expansion of their existing business at 345 Main Street. So it's an existing business that is there, but I will turn it over to the applicant if he's on to tell us any more. The license looks in order to me, so.
Good evening, everyone. Andrew Upton for the licensee, and with me is Nilesh Patel, one of the owners. As you know, Mr. Patel took this liquor store over within the last 6 months. Business is going good. He has had the opportunity to expand into the vacant commercial space to the right as you face the current store. He's interested in expanding the selection, improving the decor, investing a little bit more money in the place and the project, and hiring a few more people. And he sees it as a good opportunity to make a commitment to the customers in the town and to improve his business. And with that, we're glad to answer any questions.
Carl? Can I speak, Carl? It's Mark.
You're muted, Carlin.
I'm gonna take that as a yes.
And you're.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead, Mark, and you were first up anyway.
Thank you. Thanks, folks. So a couple of things, but first one is, sounds very interesting. I assume that you'll still continue to have single checkout area? There'll be kind of one entrance in, one entrance out?
Oh, yeah, expansion of the store, not creation of another store.
Got it. Okay, and you're not going to create registers on the other side. You come in one way and out the same way. That's the focus stays the same.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I would save my other comment for the end, Carlo, if that's all right.
Okay, sure. Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
I'm good, thank you. I appreciate your further investment in writing.
Thank you.
Yeah, my sentiments exactly. Thank you. You have a great location on Main Street, so hopefully the expansion will help business. That's all I have.
So
Mark, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So my last comment, so I'm I think known for this at this point. So wonderful, we appreciate your being very diligent about this and working this way and expanding sounds great. The one thing that's very important, and as you've just kind of taken over the store, is that we take underage drinking as a real problem that we take very seriously. And we appreciate your vigilance in making sure that everyone's appropriately trained and that there aren't any issues. There aren't questions. There's always checking as appropriate. I don't know if you use signage in terms of below age 25, things like that. I don't know what system you're using for checking IDs, but we really appreciate the diligence because we as a board take it very seriously.
Well, we appreciate that, and as we discussed when we took over, Mr. Patel has sort of come up in the business with his smoke shops and alcohol stores, so he is very well versed in checking of IDs. We have closed circuit TV. We have training for all of the staff. And, to be honest, we have close to $500,000 worth of inventory there and a long-term lease. We're not looking to take any risks at all.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Mark. All right, are we ready for a vote? Motion.
No, if there's anyone in the room that wants to speak.
Well,
Or on
where's the
Zoom.
public hearing? Sorry, yes, correct. And then we close the public hearing. Yes.
Exactly.
No one in the room, Carlo?
Anyone in Zoom? Nope. All right, let's close the public hearing, please.
Yep. Move to close the hearing regarding the liquor license alteration of premises for 345 Main Street.
Second.
All those in, do a roll call, sorry. Mark, Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carlos, yes. Thank you.
Congrats, folks. Thank you.
No, I got move to approve the alteration of premises application for an annual all alcohol package store license for Nicolet 350 Incorporated doing business as City Wanted Spirits and Smoke Shop at 345 Main Street.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carlo, and yes. Thank you, and good luck in the expansion.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, next on the agenda is some parking updates, traffic amendments. Also a hearing.
Yes. I got that, Mark. Don't worry. I'm prepared now. To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, please take notice that the Select Board of the Town of Reading will hold a public hearing on May 7, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. Are available remotely on Zoom to act on proposed changes to the following traffic and parking regulations. Amendment number 2024-1, improved traffic and pedestrian safety at the intersection of Sanborn Street and Haven Street. Amendment number 2024-2, improved traffic and pedestrian safety at the intersection of Walnut Street and Summer Ave. Copy of the proposed documents regarding this topic will be in the Select Board packet on the website at www.readingma.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing in person or remotely via Zoom, or may submit their comments in writing or by email to townmanager@ci.reading.ma.us by order of Matthew A. Cornelis, Town Manager.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call up Officer Skelton, who will tell us a little bit about the amendments and answer any questions regarding them.
Thank you. Good evening, Board, Town Manager. So stop signs, we got this through some residential concerns, and also through engineering, and it was on the PTTF agenda, and we felt that we should move forward with these 2 stop signs. Excuse me. We did some studies, starting at Sanborn and Haven. Went down and looked at the area. Honestly, we were kind of surprised that there hasn't been a stop sign already there. Turning movements for the vehicles coming off of Sanborn. Sanborn Street, as we know, is a one-way going on to Haven Street, which is also a one-way. It's a very, very busy roadway, both of them. Haven Street is, like a central artery with all the businesses in downtown. So we went down, we looked at it, did a quick study on it, did some road counts, looked at the sight lines. They were a big concern because as you come down Sanborn Street and as you're looking, vehicles are parked on both sides of the street because it's a one-way. It's a little difficult to see. And then as people are looking left, because Haven Street is a one-way, and as you're stepping off of Sanborn Street, there's a lot of foot traffic for the businesses on Haven Street themselves. So we felt that, we don't want any conflict with the vehicles just rolling through the intersection. We felt that, with the counts and with the sight line, and basically just the busyness of this area, that and with the crosswalk, which is right there at Sanborn and Haven, it should be associated with a stop sign. We felt that, having a stop sign there would really benefit and make the intersection much safer, stepping out onto Haven Street off of Sanborn. So that's kind of where we're at with that one. Moving over to Walnut at Summer, kind of the same thing. Walnut at Summer is a little bit different. If you know the area, you got the park right there where you have Walnut Street and Hopkins Street. They kind of intersect and then they separate. You come down. Most of the people stay on Hopkins Street after we did some studies that are taking a left off of Hopkins to Summer. And as you get down Walnut Street, they're taking a right, heading down to Main Street, because the 2 roadways are very close. They're adjacent right across from the park from each other. So as we did some studies at Walnut at Summer, most of the traffic is just turning right, same idea that people are looking left. And this came through with the concerns of residents and a lot of the parents at Joshua Eaton, a lot of kids that are walking up Summer Ave themselves. So as people are looking left, we don't want to have that conflict of car going through the intersection and kids coming up and looking left and not seeing right, because majority of the vehicles, as we look at the turning movements, are turning onto Summer Ave to the right, which makes sense. If you're taking a left, you're going to stay on Hopkins Street. Also, there's a driveway that's right to the right of, as you come down Walnut Street, I think it's 483 Summer Ave. And it's right next to the roadway. So as you come up and you're turning, they're backing out of their driveway. It's a very close conflict there as well, if you know the intersection. So we took that into consideration, and we felt that, the crosswalk it's close to the school, the resident concerns, the parents walking their children. We felt that we should move forward and put in a stop sign there as well. So that's kind of where we were at.
Thank you. All right, any questions from the board?
I've got a question, Carlo. It's Mark.
Okay, go ahead.
At the Sanborn and Haven, is there any distance between the corners and where the parking spots are, the 4 corners? So the Sanborn coming up to I guess now the stop sign on both sides,
Yep.
And the corner of Haven at Sanborn before, and then the corner of Haven and Sanborn after. Is there any space there, or is it kind of blind because people are right up to the curb?
It's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, the vehicles are really close on either side of that intersection when they're parked there. So Sanborn is a one-way, so it gives you the whole roadway, and there's only parking on one side of the street. So it's pretty significant for one vehicle to come out, But as you're looking, the sightlines are very difficult because there is so much parking down there.
Are there a lot of accidents that
Not
happen?
really, not too many. The speeds are very slow because everybody's just kind of moving slowly through that intersection. But we just felt that, people walking, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. It just made some sense to make it safer.
I'm good, thank you.
I had two, Carla.
Oh, go ahead.
So yeah, the Sanborn and Haven one has the double do not enter. I always thought there was stop signs on the back of it because I've only seen from going up and down. I never come down the other direction. I always just assumed it was there.
Yeah, there was a few people in the meeting saying, there was not a stop sign there? I thought there was. Yeah, because there's so much, both of those sides. Because anything times a a one-way, with the double do not enter signs, and then there's a handicap sign there, and it just seemed like, it always been that way. So maybe people thought there was a stop sign, coming down the road, and you see like those two signs up there, the one-way signs, but, yeah.
And then the Walnut one, didn't we go over something like this like a year or two ago? I remember seeing this exact area. So I don't know if it was brought up to investigate and that's why you did it and that's why I remember, but I remember when I looked at Google right now to see the map on it.
Yeah.
I know exactly the spot that it was because of a prior meeting, so I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think anything ever came across PTTF before. I don't remember looking at that specific area.
Yeah, I remember it also because I said it makes sense to put a stop sign here.
So you may be the resident at 483 Summer Ave with the driveway. They may have brought that. That may have been brought up at that point.
Oh, it made a, yes.
That may have been a previous
Mhm.
request.
Alrighty, yeah, I mean, they both make sense to me. Like I said, I assumed stuff was already there to begin with, so.
Yeah.
I'm all set, Carla.
All right, thanks. Karen, any questions? No, I don't have any either. Do we want to, we have a hearing for both of these, so we should go to the next one first.
It was both of them.
Right, the hearing was for both. This item is just for the Sanborn and Haven Street.
No, Sanborn and Haven is one, then Walnut and the other one is the other one.
Right, and the other one, right.
Yep.
So I know Officer Scout and I already talked about it. Does anyone have any questions on this one?
I don't see anybody in the room. Oh, John Sullivan has one real quick.
Mark, you good?
I'm good, yes.
All right, I saw Karen shaking her head. I'm good as well.
John Sullivan has a question, Carla.
I just have a comment.
Oh, sure, please. Go ahead,
I just
John.
have a comment, and I can, it's brief. I just have a comment, living right at the corner on Sanborn Street, I'm all in favor of a stop sign there. And it's basically very difficult to come down Sanborn and get out there when the cars are parked, because the bank park is very difficult. We have the same thing coming out of the postmark, a little farther down the street where we live, because there's always cars parked right there across from the bank. And there's no sight onto who's coming down. And once you get down a little farther, the traffic is a little faster, it picks up speed. So anything we can do, all in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, thank you. All right, any other questions from the public, either in person or on Zoom?
None here.
Matt, anyone on Zoom?
Anybody on Zoom, Caitlin?
No one on Zoom.
Okay.
All right, let's close the public hearing, please.
Move to close the hearing regarding the traffic and safety amendments.
Second.
Second, thank you, Mark. We'll do a roll call. Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carlo, and yes. All right, now I need a motion to approve.
Yep. Move to approve traffic and parking regulations amendment number 2024-1 as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Mark. Roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carlo, yes. Second one, please.
Move to approve traffic and parking regulations amendment number 2024-2 as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Mark. Roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Mark? Matt,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Carlos, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, officer, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, officer.
Renee?
All right, folks, a fun topic, discuss water and sewer rates. Okay, I don't know who's gonna start, but is Matt?
Yeah, I can.
Packet, but.
Yep,
Yeah.
I can start. There's actually two Matts on tonight. Matt Abrams from the Abrams Group is going to run through the slideshow. I believe Karen Angstrom, our CFO, is on Zoom as well. We had been meeting because you will be hopefully voting in June on the water and sewer rates. So we wanted to put together just a little bit of an overview of where we are and get you thinking about, where we could be and get a little input from the board before their vote. Matt will be with us tonight and also at the meeting where you'll be voting at. And he will be, guiding us through the process a little bit as this is his expertise. So I can turn it over to Matt and maybe have Caitlin share the presentation that we had put together regarding the water rates and let Matt drive that. And I believe Sharon is on as well in case there are any questions for any of us, so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Good evening. This is Matt Abrahams of the Abrahams Group. I am able to share the presentation as well, if that's easy.
That probably will be, thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, would you like me to put the slides up on the screen?
That'd be great.
Okay, sure.
We'll try it that way, sure.
Okay. Okay. It should be on momentarily.
Yep. We see it.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, you see an all white screen where it has the header on it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Good evening. Like I said, my name is Matt Abrahams of the Abrahams Group. We're here to talk about water and sewer. As the town manager mentioned, we have been working together to get comfortable with both the water enterprise fund and the sewer enterprise fund, the state of those funds, and also to do a little bit of number crunching looking forward. You may recall last year, I did assist the town as well at the time last year. We did a similar study, but the study was a little bit more focused last year on the new tier structure, as you'll recall. This year, we are not focused on the tier structure. We are focused on just what do we think the rates need to change over the next few years to cover what we have as projected expenses. We've been working as a group just to get comfortable with what we think the next few years will look like. And we are going to present to you this evening over the course of about 18 slides or so, where we think both funds are, and also have some recommended plans for your consideration this evening. Now, I did want to mention one other thing. We have Excel workbooks for both one for water and one for sewer that have the information that feed these slides that we're about to go over momentarily. If it's something that the board was interested in, we could put those workbooks up on the screen and even play around with different rate plan options on the fly. So just keep that in the back of your mind that that is an option if you would like to see something other than what we present to you this evening. Also, we have the ability to show you something at a subsequent meeting. So the way that these slides are structured is there's similar slides for water and for sewer. We're going to cover water first, and then we will briefly cover something related to the multi-unit accounts. We have a few slides related to that as well after we get through the water and sewer slide. This slide focuses on recent history for water. Town implemented a 4-tier rate structure for the current fiscal year FY '24. So about this time last year, this board was in active discussion on whether or not to implement a tiered rate structure, because prior to that, just flat rates were used. One rate was used for all water usage and all sewer flow. Now, as you're well aware, there's a rate tier structure in place, and it's a 4-tier rate. Multi-unit accounts are charged as 1 unit currently. For water, retained earnings health-based. The most recent certification was $4.7 million. To gauge the health of the retained earnings balance, we tend to compare that to total fund expenditures in a given year. And in this case, 58.5% of fund expenses. Now that's a very healthy number. We recommend anywhere from 10 to 30%. So that is obviously a little bit above our the recommended range. The town typically balances the budget using retained earnings to ensure rate stabilization. And the town typically funds some capital improvements as part of the operating budget to avoid additional costs incurred from borrowings. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward. 2 graphs for you this evening here on this slide, focusing on recent results. The graph on the left shows actual results for water over the last 6 completed fiscal years. And also the rightmost number is a projection for the current fiscal year of FY '24. To focus on what this graph is telling us, focus on that $0 line, and you'll see that some of the graphs go up from there and some of the graphs go down. If the graphs go up, that means there was a surplus in that year. If they go down, that means there was a deficit in that year. For 22, I know that the CFO mentioned this recently, but there is a reason why 22 looks as much in deficit as it does, besides the fact that that was a really wet year. There was something that happened that year. I think there was some additional capital improvements that had to happen on an emergency basis in that district. We're also projecting a little bit of a deficit for 24, just under $1 million for 24, and also a wet year. Looking back to last summer, last summer was very wet. The year before was very different. The graph on the right shows retained earnings certifications for the last few fiscal years, as well as the projection for FY '24. That's the rightmost number. The red line is the target. That's in this case, I think we're going to have a target of 30%. Yeah, so 30% is the red line. That's the target. And the blue is what the actuals were, plus the projected for FY '24. So you can see that the blue is well above the red for many years. And now it's kind of trending downwards towards the red. Capital investment for water. So we have a few years in the past here. We have 21 through 23 in the past. 24 is the current year. And then we have several years looking forward here. So last year when we did this analysis, we were only looking 5 years in the future. We decided as a group to expand this out 10 years in the future. And we just thought that was a better look for planning purposes. This graph doesn't show it. The sewer graph, when we get to it, is a little bit more interesting than this one, because there are additional capital expenses on the sewer side that make this graph look a little bit different than water. But for water, what this is showing us is the blue line is your capital outlay. That's part of your regular operating budget. And you can see that it's pretty stable once we get to the next fiscal year, FY '25. It doesn't really waver that much. It must be somewhere around $300,000 per year. The orange line is the debt number, or projected debt. And you can see that the town is projecting that debt related to capital will be decreasing as time moves on. Mr. Chairman, I'll just pause real quickly because there's a hand up. I didn't know if you want to take that question now.
Is that okay, Carla?
Yes, sorry, yes.
That's okay. That's okay, thanks. I wanted to ask before we get too far ahead. The previous slide I had a question. Could you just put into English why we are running deficits in water during wet years?
Sure. I will attempt to answer your question. You can let me know if it's satisfactory or not. So, think about outdoor water usage. In a dry year, people will generally choose to use water outdoors to make their lawns look nice, to make their gardens look nice. In a wet year, there's less of a need to do that because obviously the Mother Nature is helping out in that regard. So there's generally less outdoor water usage in a wet year versus a dry year. And what's been interesting about the last few years is that we've seen very extreme years on both ends of the weather patterns. So if we think about 22, for example, that was a very wet summer. The year after that, which was 2 summers ago, was an extremely dry summer. Right. And then this past year, worked with another community recently that referenced it was the wettest July in a significant period of time. And I think overall, for what we've seen, it was the wettest, warmer season in somewhere like 12 to 15 years, something like that. So unfortunately, we've seen wild swings in the weather. We haven't had a normal year, whatever normal is considered these days, in several years.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. So we have 3 years of data. I think as a community, we need to keep an eye on this. Because if we're there goes all our sprinkler water consumption. but if the weather is predicted to get increasingly wet and warm, then this will be a state of our water usage, which is great for water conservation, but it requires a little more thoughtful planning. Yes?
Yes, I'd say that's true. But in my opinion, it's very difficult to know what the weather patterns are going to bring over the next few months. Agreed.
I
have no idea.
Thank you. And that was really the question I had. I suspected that was the reason, and thank you for clarifying that. I have one question on the next slide.
Yep.
So, wondering why do we think our debt is going to trend down? I believe we have sewer stations that need to be replaced and miles of water lines that still need to be upgraded.
So this slide is water only. This does not include anything related to sewer. We will look at sewer momentarily.
Okay.
But in terms of the water lines, I'm not the one that puts together the plan, but my understanding of it is that the town reviews it annually, and based on what the town thinks the capital needs are, the town projects debt and capital expenses related to that. So the latest plan that's available, this is what the town believes these capital expenses are going to be. Now, if you were to look at this plan 3 years from now, it could look very different. But this is what the latest rendition of the plan is.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just a little worried about such a rosy outlook, but I realize the further you get into the future. But I think we have a handle on our miles of water lines. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so just understand that the town does look at this annually. So if the town feels there's a need to include additional capital projects, the town will do.
Carlo, can I chime in for a minute? It's Mark.
Oh, sure, go right ahead.
Thanks. So I want to echo what Karen's talking about. Maybe, Sharon, if you're on, or if this is a discussion for DPW also, 22, we had, we lost Walker's Brook, right? From old stuff. And I don't know if that was water or sewer, but it was water. Yeah. So do we have plans to replace all the old stuff? And is that in this $2 to $2.5 million of debt through 2031? And if we don't have the answer to that, maybe before the next meeting, we could just make sure that we're thinking about it.
In fiscal 22, we did have the emergency break at Walker Brook Drive, and then we had added additional funds to continue work just to make sure that everything was going to be okay in that area. And for several years out, we had $300,000 or $400,000 extra each year to continue that work if it's needed. Before Jane Kinsella left, she had me take the last 2 years of $300,000 or $400,000 that we had sitting there off because she said they had completed that work and that wouldn't be needed. So it's based on consult with the DPW director, the engineer, and all the people that kind of know the asset better, the infrastructure better, and what's planned. And the other thing we always try to do is capitalize on MWRA debt and grants, because we do get 0% debt, like they charge us 0%, and some portion of it is granted to us through the MWRA. So that helps keep our debt down too, because some portion of it is grant, not necessarily borrowing. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I think it'd be worth Chris taking a look at it also, just to make sure.
It would be a better question for Chris to talk about what he sees going forward. It's definitely detailed in the capital plan that was in your warrant book, all the things that they're planning to do. But a lot is done by MWRA debt when it comes to water. The Walker Brook Drive, having those large expenses in the operating budget for capital. That was unusual. We don't usually have huge numbers in the operating budget. We were trying to keep the rate stable. So most things are borrowed for or granted through the MWRA.
Can we actually apply for those grants, or how does that work?
We do, as much as they're available to us, we do apply for those, and we utilize them as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, no, I know we utilize them. I just, kind of understanding the age and what's going on. I thought that we'd had a discussion, and so Walkersburg hopefully is well cared for now, but you got other draws that are starting to happen. There is more pull in MWRA that's going to come from a couple of areas. If that's old stuff, maybe it's a good grant
It's
time.
definitely something I think that Chris could expand upon, but from what I understand, Walker Brook's Drive, the work that they needed to do there has been completed. He could probably confirm that.
Sure. Thank you.
I had just one question, Carlo.
Yep.
If we can go back to one previous slide. So I know Karen asked you to speak in plain English what this graph means, because to me, seeing it is kind of what you sort of danced around. Because we conserved water, hypothetically, because it rained so much, we are in the hole $1 million. Is that the case?
It's a projection, I guess, that's accurate. But well, I shouldn't say because of that. There are other factors, but that is a major factor, yes.
So water conservation is costing us money instead of using more water, which would end up bringing the cost down, correct?
I could answer some of this. I feel like when you're looking at fiscal 22 and fiscal 24, there's capital there, and it's taking down your surplus because you're using more capital to keep the rate stable. And so when you're using more to support the budget, the surplus could go down, up or down. So I think in the years like fiscal 22 and fiscal 24, we felt the need to use more because we're conservative about the volume of water that we're going to sell, and we're also including capital in those years. And fiscal 22 was a rough year because we used a large amount of surplus to deal with the problems at Walker Brook Drive.
But I thought it was just mentioned that we, because of how wet the year was, that's kind of why we're in the position that we're in. What percentage of that bar is relevant to that? Like half of it, or how much?
I would say most of it's related to capital, because I feel like when we budget the use of or consumption of water, we tend to be more conservative. So I would say that when you see those years where we're showing it going, as a deficit, it's because we've got capital going on and most of the surplus is being used there.
Yeah, no, I'm just going off what Mr.
I
Abrams
definitely
just.
think there's a play on the wet year or dry year. We definitely are. We never know when it's going to be a wet year or dry year, so we're very conservative when we're budgeting the volume of water being consumed.
All right, I'll save some stuff to the end. Thank you.
Thanks.
earlier.
All right, so now we start to look forward a little bit. We're still looking at water slides here. This is what we call our baseline scenario. Basically what it is we project all the revenues, we project all the expenses, but we don't assume any additional revenue from rates. So basically this is the picture. If you keep the rates the exact same as they are today without changing. So it's kind of a look at how far your retained earnings can carry you, in other words. And basically this is telling us that your retained earnings could carry you through FY27, but not beyond that. And this is also another way of saying this is this shows a continued need to focus on rates and what they should be going forward, because there will be a need to increase revenues. So this is kind of a starting point for our discussion moving forward. So the graph here, the orange line is that target that I talked about. That's 30% that we mentioned earlier, and the blue line is your projected retained earnings. And as we mentioned a few slides ago, the latest retained earnings balance is somewhere in the 50% range. We have a deficit projected for 24, so it drops a little bit from there. And then as the expenses continue to go up and your revenues kind of remain stagnant, that's when the blue goes below the orange. And here's a similar slide, but now we have rate changes in effect. So we're calling this option 1. This is something that we decided as a group to put together to show you this evening. And we have it as a 3% increase in 25. We've also shown additional increases for the rest of the 10-year look out through FY34. Now, once rates are set over the next few weeks, presumably the rate would be set just for FY25, the next fiscal year, but we like to show you multiple years so that you're informed as to what those look like when you make your decision. So you can see that everything here is updated from the prior slide, including the retained earnings projections. And based on the rate plan that we have here, we have the blue going below the orange, but it happens when a further year out, and then the blue works its way back towards the orange by the end of the 10-year look. This is one option we have for you. The other one, one additional slide related to the 3% option. We are showing for you in this table and also in the words down below the table, impact on certain users that we focus on. Now these aren't real accounts per se. We just chose usage numbers that were nice round figures and wanted to see what the impact of those usage amounts were. We focus on two rows here called the average residential user based on certain gallons per day usage. So there's 45 gallons per person per day or 65 gallons per person per day. We came up with a range based on these two numbers. And the first bullet point here shows what the increase in the average residential user's bill is for 25. Per bill now is about $5 or $7.44. And then if you look at that annually, that's about $20 for the lower average residential user and about $30 annually for the higher one. And we're also looking at someone that we're calling a large residential user. That's a $15.77 increase per bill, which works out to be about $63 annually. And the next two slides are very similar to the ones that we just showed. This is a level plan all the way across the board. What I mean by that is it's the same rate change for all 10 years, 2.5%. And you can see that with this one, the blue actually works its way back above the orange by the end of the 10-year clock. And this slide is going to be similar. There's a 3%, now we're looking at 2.5%. So the impact is just slightly less than what we showed on the prior slide. It's somewhere around $16 or $25 for the average residential user annually, $52 for the large residential user annually. There's a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Carl. Just a quick question. These are very helpful, and I'm just wondering, since we don't know what MWA is going to charge us every year, how do you account for that in these charts?
That's a very good question. So we have projections in here based on a few things. It's methodology that we use with the clients that we work with at our MWA communities, and it's pretty consistent. So what we did was we looked at, all right, take a step back. The MWA assesses all of its members based on their share of total flow. So in other words, what is your flow compared to them? That's what you're assessing a given year. The MWA tries to recover a certain amount of cost from all of its members. And that certain amount of cost, which I'm calling the system-wide assessment, because that means everyone together, system-wide. That system-wide assessment increases a certain percentage annually. It's somewhere between like 3.1 and 3.9%. Okay? They say in their budget book that it's going to be 3.9%. It's not always 3.9%. But when we do our projections, we like to be conservative. So we assume it's 3.9% every year. So for each of the years in this book, we are assuming that the system-wide assessment goes up 3.9% from their current year. Then, what is Reading's portion of that system-wide assessment? It's based on your flow share. Okay, you don't know what your flow share is going to be a year from now. You don't know what it's going to be 5 years from now. But you do know what it has been historically over the last few years. No, so you can't. The information's out there. So we've averaged that out for you. And whatever your flow share is, that average over the last 5 or 6 years, I think we looked at, I don't know if it's on there. We're applying that flow share to that system-wide assessment projection that I'm talking about. So we have projected your assessment for the next several years based on that kind of cost. Hopefully that made sense. If I were to show you in the workbook, it might be a little clearer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I had a question, Carlo, on this.
Sure.
Thanks, Carlo. So the MWRA charges us a flat rate every single year that we have to end up charging. You finally got it, Mark.
Sorry.
So the MWRA charges us a flat rate every year, and then we have to recoup that from all the residents using the water, correct? Is that how it goes?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. Well, the MWRA assessment is part of your operating budget.
Yes.
So yes, so rates are designed to recover your operating expenses. So yes, they are designed to recover your MWRA assessment.
So if in all of 2025, we decided to stop using water in Reading, the town would be on the hook for how much money? That they have no way of getting it reimbursed from the residents. How much is the annual assessment typically? Is it 5 or 6 million, or am I making that number up?
It is your annual assessment on the water side for FY25 is about $2.9 million.
So going back to my previous thing about the wetter year that we had, that's kind of where I'm getting at, that we can't have wetter years and then expect to be reimbursed by the residents for the money. Like, you see what I'm getting at? Like, it's, if it rained 365 days through the whole year, just imagine all the sprinklers that aren't getting used, et cetera. So the money has to come from somewhere. And to me, that's how we're in some of this deficit to begin with. So my other follow-up to that is, how did we get into the positive for any of this stuff? Like, where did everything go wrong? Because when you scale this out, how did we end up with 4 million here in FY24? like at some point we had to be in the positive, because looking at these numbers, we're just going in the red year over year over year, unless we start burning money to make up for it. So what did we do to get in the good place that we're in the first place to be able to be using the money that we have? And how can we not return back to that?
I can take a shot at answering that. So,
I can answer to some extent. I feel like we use a conservative budgeting style, and so the water is meant to cover all the costs of operations of water. And when we're conservative about the way we budget it, if we have more usage than we have budgeted, we end up having surplus. So it's almost like our free cash. The other thing that I think maybe might be confusing you is that Matt's slides don't show any level of regeneration. And we do have regeneration in water and sewer. It's just showing if we regenerated nothing, this is how long your surplus would last with no regeneration. We tend to regenerate every year because of a conservative budgeting style that we have throughout the town.
All right, so that's some of the disconnect that I'm seeing here compared to prior years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, that's all I had, Carla.
so we're going to transition to sewer slides now, unless you want to talk about water further.
That's a quick question, Carlo. This is Mark. Matt A., so as you're working in all sorts of other communities, what kind of increases are they putting into their systems? What are they putting into their budgets?
Well, increases you're referring to?
Water rate increases to the residents per year. So as you're doing the same exercise, going through these options, you're laying out 2.5s and 3s and things, or you're laying out 1s or 5s or what?
Well, every community is different, but I would say that for the most part, we're looking at increases higher than the ones that we see here.
Thank you.
Most communities do not have as healthy retained earnings as town of Reading has for their enterprise funds. And that's a testament to the town staff and the work that they do to make sure that they're running smoothly on a year-over-year basis.
Thank you.
And we, as we mentioned earlier, those white years have thrown a lot of communities for loops. They expect, yes, they expect, because you never know what you're going to expect. But having 2 very down revenue years in the last 3 has really hurt a lot of communities, and they're trying to play catch up at this point.
Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Great question, thank you.
Okay, on to sewer.
Okay, I'm just here. So you can see similar slides for sewer. The numbers are a little bit different. For sewer, just like with water, 4-tier rate structure. The retained earnings balance is 7.3 million. That's 99% of fund expenses. Water is about 58. That's 99. It's a higher number. The town typically balances the budget using retained earnings to ensure rate stabilization. Town typically funds capital improvements as part of the operating budget to avoid additional costs incurred from borrowings. Here's the similar slide as we showed earlier. Actual results on the left. And one thing that stood out to me was that there are less deficits going downward. They are still the same years, but the bars are shorter than they were with water. And on the positive side, the surplus side going up, those bars are longer than they were on the water side. So that kind of speaks in general to the sewer fund, and that it is generally more healthy than the water fund when you look at these types of numbers, and the retained earnings numbers support that. Now, I'm not saying water's unhealthy. It's not. It's just healthy. This one is healthy period. So on the sewer, on the right-hand side, this is the retained earnings recent certifications plus the projection, and you can see that the blue is well above the target for each of the years in the book. And that again speaks to the health of the surrounding parkland. So this slide looks different. This is the capital slide, same one as water. But you can see that there's a difference here. The blue dash is way up in the outlying years. This is one of the reasons why we thought presenting a 10-year look made a lot of sense. Because the town has on its capital plan on the sewer side some pretty extensive capital work in the outlying years here. So this is in the FY 30, 31, 32 time frame. And we wanted to at least put this in front of you so that you understand that this is coming. Now, in the current plan, the town has this as capital outlay, which was funded as part of the operating budget and would not be borrowed. Now, that could very well change, and it may change for the very near future. But for now, this is what the plan has. All right, so we have factored in what you are looking at here in our analysis. That means we are assuming that the town will fund these expenses, these capital expenses out of capital outlay, part of the regular operating budget, and will not borrow it. Now, you're aware that if the town were to borrow, that stretches out the payment of those expenses over multiple years, and the per year hit is not quite as large, not nearly as large, as it under this scenario, where you're paying capital outlay, and that's a pretty big expense in 1 year. So that the top of that blue peak there, that's about $2 million. So that's definitely not nothing. So just be aware as we move forward through these next few slides that we are assuming this capital outlay in our notes. Here's the baseline scenario. This is everything projected, but assuming no rate changes. Right, you can see that your retained earnings can take you through FY 29, but not beyond. And there's a pretty big drop off there, and that has a lot to do with the fact that we are including those capital expenses as outlay based on the town's current plan. Here's option one for sewer. We went with, in this case, the consistent rate plan that we showed for water as well. You'll see that the rate changes are the same in each of the years that we're showing, each of the 10 years. 4%. And with 4% annually, the blue does stay above the orange, but it works its way down towards the orange, as you might expect, especially with some of these larger capital expenses coming. So to see the hit, you can see the hit of that 1 year that I was talking about. Take a look at the FY 30 and FY 31 columns in the table here. We are projecting at this point that FY 30 would have a surplus of about $400,000. And then even with a 4% rate increase in FY 31, that goes to a deficit of over $1 million. So you can see the hit right there of the capital outlay that we're including in the plan. Similar slide as we showed you for water, 4% on the sewerage side, about $6, $9 per bill for the average residential user, which works out to be $25 to about $38 annually, and the large residential user about $20 per bill, $80 annually. Option two, we decided to show a little bit of a smaller increase in the first year in FY 25, about 3%. And then what would that mean for the subsequent years, so that we saw a similar result in retained earnings at the end of the 10-year period. And we think that would be 4.5% per year. And what does that mean? 3% for FY 25 is about $5 to $7 per bill for the average residential user, which works out to be about $19, $28 annually. Large residential user, $15 per bill, $60 annually. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll just pause the question.
Aaron, good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the pause. This is just a question for Sharon. I feel like it's getting late, but is the water tower debt accounted for in these two buckets, or is that accounted for separately?
The water would have been under the water fund. The sewer would be the water tank is what you're referring to, yes?
Yes.
Yes, it would have been included in the water slides, the sewer. What you're seeing for capital in the sewer in the later years are sewer stations, which we very well may borrow for if MWRA grants and debt become available. But at this time, we don't know if it will be available. And so that's why it looks kind of like a jolt up. More than likely, we will borrow for it. It's just too far out for us to know if we'll have it available to us.
Okay, nope, it's good to know that we are paying the bills and we're paying some significant investments, and this is what the picture looks like, including all of that. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, that's the conclusion of the sewer slides. We have some multi-unit slides we can cover now if you want to, or we could talk about water or sewer, whatever your preference is.
Does the board have a preference?
I have a question if I could. So, what I think would be really helpful is if you could share with us the historic rate changes in both water and sewer. In other words, each year we kind of do this and we look out 5 or 10 years. It'd be nice to see kind of what's happened given what we thought was going to happen. And, see, is it making sense? And for example, last year, if we went to, fiscal 24, what were the increases? I think we ended up matching them water and sewer, but I think it would be helpful to have that information in front of us as well. At least going back, 3 years, maybe that's a good 5 years, just to reach back to see. Yeah, 5. So yeah, that sounds great. I think that'll just help us put everything into more perspective as to, what's going on. And also as we're thinking about doing, you laid out an option here of, hey, do 3% in the first year, but guess what? You're gonna have to really jack it up after that because of those big expenses coming, the big debt, big capital coming later. Just like to see kind of what we've been doing. I seem to remember that last year sewer was looking pretty good, if I'm not mistaken. And we could have done less, but I'm not gonna remember it, and sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me. Just put it on these slides, would be great.
Carlo, I had one question.
Yeah, good.
What is MWRA's assessment on the sewer for us for this year? Does it mirror the water at 2.5 or whatever, or is it?
What do you mean by, 2.5? What does the 2.5 represent? I'm sorry.
It was 2.9 last night, 2.8, 2.9 for water. The assessment from MW.
So what is the assessment?
Yeah.
He's asking how much the assessment is for the sewer.
Yeah, I have it. Sewer assessments are generally higher than water. In some cases, much higher than water. Your sewer assessment from the MWRA for FY25 is $5.2 million.
Okay.
Okay, I have one other question which always lingers, and I know we talked to Fidel about this last year. We're getting whacked on our rates in general because of all of the debt that we took on to get into MWRA. Whereas, I'll tell the story, whereas some other communities that came in later than we did didn't have to incur it. They got more grants. So what can we do to, maybe it's working with our legislators, I don't know what it is exactly, but if we could get some relief, let them forgive some of that stuff, to be more consistent with what they did with people that joined more recently, that would probably, I think, be the biggest impact possible on our rates, right? Taking them down. I think that it's the assessment of the debt that's killing us from MWRA until it's done, which is like in the 2035 range or something. Does that sound right, Sharon?
28, I think.
2028?
I
Okay.
see 2027.
2027. Okay, still. So we're getting whacked for another 3 years here. And communities that joined later than we did didn't get whacked the way we did. So we're getting penalized for joining them, my view.
I don't know of anything, do you, Matt, that provided relief with that?
No, I mean, I could certainly check. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's something we could check out for sure.
Yeah, I know that we tried to get Fidel to go crazy on it, and I think that he didn't You couldn't
You couldn't
get anybody
yeah.
to listen,
Yeah,
but
it's a tough situation, so we can look at, we can look into it.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything.
So how many more slides do we have again?
I just have a few multi-unit ones if you want to go over them. We don't even have to go over them though. It's up to you.
Maybe real quick, like real quick.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we started an analysis related to the multi-units last year, maybe the end of June, and then this was covered, also reviewed with in January with a former member of the select board as well. This is the results of analysis that I did to try and understand the impact of how the multi-unit accounts are built today, based on FY24 rates, to what it would look like if they were to be billed at the per unit level instead of at the per building level. So let's see if that makes sense. Because at the per building level, it's all the usage together, and that makes the account get up into the higher tiers more quickly. If it's at the per unit level, then what happens is the usage is averaged out per unit, and then that is run through the tiers. So it's a much smaller, the usage doesn't get up into the higher tiers nearly as quickly. And then you kind of combine the total billed amounts to figure out the bill for the account. So this slide here is the results of our analysis. 54 multi-unit accounts that we looked at. Total consumption about 5.5 million cubic feet. Then we have a breakdown of usage by tier. The current breakdown shows you that there's a lot of usage in tier 4, as you might expect. And then if you were to look at it at the per unit level, that's the bottom listing there, where our analysis showed that there actually was no tier 4 usage under that scenario, and most of the usage was in tier 1, or would be in tier 1. That's not the way it's built today. This slide shows the actual dollars results of the analysis. Right there, this is just looking at water, I believe. Rates per tier. When I say looking at water, the rates that are presented are the water rates, not the sewer rates.
Our current rates, right? Our current rates.
Yeah, these are current rates. I'm just saying that I didn't put those sewer rates on the slide. I probably should have, but just the water rates are here. And the reason why I'm showing them is because there's not a huge variation in the number, the rate, when you look at tier 1 and tier 4. There's only $1.75 that separates them. Sometimes we see rates per tier that are much wider than that, or different than that. But in this case, they're not. And I wanted to mention that because the dollar impact at the total level is maybe not as high as one would think it is if they just kind of thought about it high level without looking at the numbers. So we came up with a savings of about $81,700 for water if the accounts were to be billed at the per unit level, and about $84,200 for sewer if they were to be billed at the per unit level. And we also looked at one particular example, Postmark, and annually savings of about $2,000 for water and about $21 for sewer. So because we have this data available and we've heard, there have been discussions related to the multi-units, we figured we'd include this as part of our presentation.
This is helpful, thank you.
And so, Mr. Chairman, those are all the slides I had for you this evening. Besides one that just says, thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad that you showed those last two slides because were, relevant to public comments earlier and what was, kind of instructed per town meeting. And just as a board, we know we have to try to figure this out for the bigger buildings and specifically with that building, with the restaurant coming online, that's going to add quite a bit to their water bill. So we'll work on that together. So thank you. Any other questions from the board?
One quick question, just to clarify, Matt, so when you take this example, the Postmark, that's the savings for the building? 2,038 in water, 2,095 in sewer?
Yes. So if you want to look at that
Got
at the unit level, you have to divide that by the number of units, which I think is 50 something.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what it was referring to.
Carlos, can I make a comment?
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you. This was a great presentation. I really appreciate the way you laid this out. So the postmark, that's gonna be an interesting building, because what I heard you say is that, you know, if you divide it by all the units, well, first of all, your data is based on an empty restaurant, and Carlo, I agree with you, like, so the water usage for the entire building is gonna go way up, but then, so then you then have to take it, you can't just divide it by residential units, because that's not a purely residential property. So do we take, I don't know, what are there, 16 units, and we act like the restaurant is the equivalent of a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom condo? They're probably not gonna be very happy about that. So, but you can see how it gets even more complicated. These savings, or the savings will change because the amount of water for the building is gonna change, but now you have residential use versus a significantly larger commercial use, which is 1 unit in a multi-unit building. So, okay, definitely food for thought.
Is it possible to put a meter on just that one commercial unit?
Well, what the previous town manager told me was that the state law says, well, the state law says 1 municipal meter per address. But what the residents have told us are that all the individual units were metered behind the municipal meter. So the municipality can't see who's using what, but theoretically, the residents and rent lessors of the, or owners of the building can see.
So I wonder, when they're billed for the building postmark and they have individual meters, my guess is that they're doing their pro rata share of the usage. So whatever the total usage is on the bill, each unit is going to be billed their percentage of the bill.
At that tier 4 rate though.
Yeah, which is, I get it, it's like $12.50 and the first tier is $10.75, so they are being penalized, but it's not a huge swing, I guess is what I'd say. My guess is that they don't use that much water, but I mean, it doesn't seem right, they have to pay $12.50 at the same time, the tiers are not vastly different.
Yeah, it's about equity. It's not equitable at all. Okay, I think, thank you, Matt, for that presentation. We'll see you soon, and I think we can move on to the next agenda item. This is not a hearing, it's just a discussion and vote on a conservation restriction, and I saw Chuck in the room earlier. I don't know if he's still there.
He's still,
our conservation
he's still here.
administrator. And the reason I moved this up, because I became aware that this was holding up a closing. So Chuck can correct me that this restriction was put on by the property owner and had to be approved by conservation, which it has. So unless I'm wrong, we're just approving what conservation approved. Do I have that right, Chuck?
That's right. Conservation Commission has already voted unanimously to approve this conservation restriction for Lot 4 on Grove Street.
So I didn't want to hold up a closing any further than we had to. So this should be a quick agenda item, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free.
So can you tell us what this is and why?
Yeah, sure. So that end of Grove Street is connected to the town forest. And most of the town forest is priority habitat. And so is lot 1 through 5. And so MISA, who oversees priority habitat for the state, Division of Fish and Wildlife, decided to restrict the first 2 lots that are closest to the wetland, which is lot 5, which the town owns, and lot 4, which is this private lot, So with both those lots, they were very even, and they said you can build on 1/3 of the property. So the configuration of the parking lot and this development for that house is approximately 1/3 of that existing lot. On Lot 4, which we're talking about here tonight with the conservation restriction, the lot, that 1/3 of the lot is restricted through the state, and then the qualified group, which is the town, will also hold the restriction, but through the town, it's also through the Conservation Commission. So I guess that the conservation restriction is preventing development on the on that lot that's owned privately, so it's more connected to the land that's preserved and restricted and used for amphibian habitat.
So is there any, does Lot 5 have an equivalent, somewhat equivalent restriction that's placed on the deed that we own as the town?
So I don't actually know where Lot 5 is and what the town is doing with it, but it was, if it was gifted to the conservation restriction, it would gain Article 97 status and be protected. I don't know where that is in the process, if it was thought about, so I was thinking about that this afternoon, but like I said, I don't know.
So are we, by grouping together lots 4 and 5, are we giving lot 4 an advantage, basically, in terms of the buildable space? Because the restriction, they're allowed more than, are they allowed 1/3 of lot 4, or are they allowed 1/3 of lots 4 and 5 together?
No, they're only allowed 1/3 of their own lot.
Of lot 4, okay. Got it.
Yeah. It seems to be quite restrictive. I mean, Natural Heritage likes to concentrate generally within the first 300 feet of the wetland. So from the wetland out, upland, 300 feet is their prime area to, look at. And they'll look at anything within their zone, within that protected zone. But I think they were being very fair by not going after those other 3 lots. And so.
And the impact of this would be that as they're thinking about whatever development they would do on that lot, that 1/3, however defined, I assume it's quite specific, because I would imagine the back is much more, requires more protection than the front, I'm guessing. Is that true? Basically, we're just defining the footprint of development.
The entire 2/3 of the conservation restriction on Lot 4 is restricted in the same way. So it's all looked at in the same light, I guess.
And when they develop on the lot, do they need any approvals at this point? Or is there any definition to the lot in terms of where they can and can't build? I'm just trying to understand what's the impact here.
So there is a plan in the conservation restriction that shows you exactly where they can build and where they can't build. So that's quite known. Plus, the town has put up a guardrail in front of that area, and it's actually surveyed off where the building can happen. Now, there's a lot of restriction that there will be a house, there'll be a yard, they'll be able to do all those things, but they will never be able to put a pool in the back like maybe their neighbors could do, something like that. So it's restricted to open space, trails, signs, certain other things that could happen. And we wanted it open like that because in the future, it's possible that other property becomes available in that area. So we wanted to have this restriction similar to what we'd put on other pieces that are out there.
Beautiful, thank you.
Okay.
I'm good, Carlo.
Any other questions? Thanks. Any other questions? No. I'm good.
All right.
Motion?
Yep. Move to approve the Conservation Commission's acceptance of a conservation restriction over a portion of Assessor's Parcel 44-135 A lot located off Grove Street, such area marked as conservation restriction easement area as shown on plan entitled Proposed Plot Plan in Reading, Mass. Showing development of 4 lots at number 0 Grove Street recorded in the Southern Middlesex County District Registry of Deeds as plan number 28 of 2023.
Second.
Thanks, Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, take a roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carlo, and yes. Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. And for the record, I have the approval for the board to sign, so turn that around.
Matt, can you stamp that for me? Is that allowed?
I'll have to check on that because it's a notarized document. I will
Okay.
check though to make sure. I don't want to do it if it's going around, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm gonna request, I'm starting to fade. It's 3 a.m. here almost. If we can do if you could do future agendas real quick, and then I'm gonna tap out. Is that okay?
Can I give you a 2-second update on committee recalc?
Will it be that quick?
Not 2 seconds, but it'll be really quick. What I want to do is just I talked a little bit about it before, but it's really to bring the board up to speed in terms of recalc desired to bring the permanent building committee into the loop on site selection, which is a little bit earlier than normal in the process. The advantage would be that if they, as construction professionals, found something or suggested something, maybe they could help with the process. And I talked to the chair, and he concurs that he would like to be involved and is therefore putting it onto his agenda. I am going to put an application in, which is, in fact, I put an application for the water tower before. So I'll put an application in with them. Recalc will then be moving forward. What we'd like to do is come to the board on June 18th, future agenda item, rather than May 21st. And recalc will be sunsetting unless this board decides to extend it. So I think that if the board, after that presentation on June 18th, if the board has some questions, then maybe we need to extend recalc a little bit, but we can wait till then. But once recalc sunsets, we need someone to drive the project forward. That typically would be a project building committee. And it would be similar, I guess, to what I'm proposing is would be similar to what the school has done also. We create a project building committee. It consists of all the members of the permanent building committee, and the permanent building committee would add probably 1 to 2 other people to it. I mean, again, we don't need to decide this. This is just kind of talking process for a minute. And that would be done by the, not the VASC, but rather the chair of the select board, chair of the school committee, and I think town moderator, if I'm not mistaken. Those would be the ones that do the,
Committee, yeah.
yeah, that would be the committee that does that. So I just want to make the board aware that we should have that discussion at one of our next meetings, is to form that committee. Or excuse me, I think it's actually the PBC that forms it. What we do is we, there has to be that appointment committee. That appointment committee would have to select folks, and probably it would be one kind of from the sponsoring organization, which probably would be the select board. And maybe it is someone from COA or someone like that. Again, just kind of planting the seed and the timing of what that is. This would get us back onto a track. The one other thing that's different is that the PBC usually gets involved once money has been allocated for a feasibility study by town meeting. Mm-hmm. In the case of recalc, the money has already been allocated, done through ARPA. So that part's already set. Permanent building committee typically would say, well, as soon as town meeting allocates the funds for the feasibility study, we move ahead. Okay. We kind of have that. A little bit of new territory, but this seems to make sense. So I just wanted to kind of, number one, talk about it. And number two, I think that on a future agenda item, if it's okay with the board, we could actually, I think if we vote, who we might want it to be if we decide it's going to be an ex officio member. And I'll learn more about that. I got to talk more to the PBC about how that works.
All right, no, thank you. I know you requested this agenda item, and it makes sense. So we'll, address it because it's important. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so future agendas on the 21st. Mark, are you still okay with recalc presenting? There's a question mark there.
Just is that we don't present at that meeting unless the board would just like an update on things. Rather, we move it to the June 18th timeframe.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with that. I think we've all been following this. I'll speak for myself. We've all been following this pretty closely, but if no one has an objection, we can move it to the 18th. That's fine.
No objection?
All set.
Can I go first? There's a few things, very minor things that should be on here, and I overlooked them, but we all know they're coming. We have to appoint someone to the retirement board, and that'll be on the 21st. So we'll add that to the agenda. And then we have to finalize our CPA committee, and we have some candidates that have to be interviewed by the board. So we're gonna also do that on the 21st. So we'll be adding those two items to the agenda. And as far as I know, Eagle Scouts are on board for the 21st. So that was the two items that I wanted to add, nothing new really, but maybe the CPA one's a little bit new. Instead of going through VASC, we're just going to interview them directly because it is our selection for that committee. Anyway, so that's what I have for future agendas. Anyone else can please add their comments.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Anyone?
We can also follow up. Doesn't have to be next night.
Yeah. All right. I made it this far. I'm pretty impressed. I am going to lead the meeting. I apologize. I have a big day tomorrow, so thank you. I'm going to have Chris take over, and I will see you next week.
What's going on? Are we wrapping up?
No, I'm leaving the meeting because I'm leaving the meeting.
So I think you actually defer to the vice chair in that case.
Yeah.
Well, Karen's on Zoom. Yeah, that's fine. Chris is in the room, but the public comment's over.
So the vice chair would usually assume the chair's duties if they can't, but what do we have left on the agenda, right?
Meeting
We have
minutes.
executive session and
Executive
coming back.
Okay. No problem.
So, yeah.
Yep, get it done.
All right, I'm gonna leave. Thank you.
Thanks for staying up, Carlo.
So
Yeah, thanks.
drive safely.
Yeah.
So Madam Chair.
So, all right. Okay, future agendas, approved meeting minutes. I didn't get a chance to look at the meeting minutes. Very honest. You guys have any changes?
I did not.
I just have a minor one on second page. Under the retirement board, it says, so under VASC, but then after retirement board on the third paragraph, it says, but Bocce feels they need more information. But I believe that was me that asked that.
Okay, I'll make that change, sorry.
Okay.
But that's it.
Right, well, I have to accept the motion to accept the meeting minutes as amended.
Move to approve the meeting minutes from April 9th, 2024 as amended.
Second.
Thanks. Okay, roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Karen? Yes. Next item. Okay, let's go into executive session. Okay, so Chris, you probably have a motion for this?
Yes, move that the board enter into executive session to strategy with respect to collective bargaining and to conduct collective bargaining with ASME Council 93 Local 1703 Engineers Union, including potential approval of contracts under Purpose 2 and Purpose 3 as the chair declares that an open meeting could have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body, and to invite staff members Matt Cornelis, Sharon Angstrom, Chris Cole, and Caitlin Osella into the executive session, and to reconvene an open session for the purpose of sharing whether the board voted to execute the contract with the engineers union.
Excuse me, is Sean going to be in
Yes,
here too?
Sean
Is
is gonna be
Sean on
here.
your list?
He was not.
Oh, I can
So can I make a friendly amendment to include him?
We can add you, Sean.
Okay.
So friendly amendment to add Sean, if that's all right, Karen.
Absolutely.
So you made the motion, I'll second it.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we need to get out of the room, or are we good?
We need to do a roll call vote first.
Okay. Okay, Chris,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Karen, yes.
All right, thanks. So.
Hi, Bob.
Rob and RCTV.
You can you do a virtual gavel, a Zoom gavel?
Ready whenever.
Okay.
Okay.
So just flipping back on RCTV. Be nice if that on air helped us, but
The whole time.
it's on air or on air.
They need a
Two
double.
choices.
They need a double on air, Ron.
Double on air.
On air and recording.
Okay, then I think Karen, you gavel us back in. Yep.
Okay, the Reading Select Board is back in open session. We have a summary of a motion and a vote that we took from Secretary Haley.
The Select Board approved the July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027 collective bargaining agreement between the town and AFSCME Council 93 Local 1703 Engineers Union by a vote of 3-0.
That's the end of our agenda. I would accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Chris,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Karen, yes. We are adjourned.